Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, February 1st. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect mostly sunny skies with a high of 67 degrees in San Antonio today. Governor Greg Abbott will deliver his annual State of the State address tonight, likely highlighting the state's resilience amid a devastating pandemic and pressing for an aggressively conservative legislative agenda as he eyes re-election and a possible presidential bid. We have your preview of the speech over at expressnews.com. Another thing to watch this week is the fallout from the Gamestop stock saga. Like many Americans, San Antonio representatives were watching the volatility closely. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. In Texas, Latinos have accounted for nearly half of all COVID-19 deaths, despite making about 40% of the population. Nationally, Black and Hispanic people are about 4 times as likely as white people to be hospitalized with COVID-19, according to the CDC. On Thursday, the Department of State Health Services promised to begin requiring all providers to report race and ethnicity data for all vaccine recipients. That pledge came after advocates and health experts raised concerns that the information was missing for nearly half of the 1.8 million Texans who have received at least one dose of the vaccine. Over the past year, the state's data problems have surfaced in nearly every facet of the COVID-19 response, from calculating the rate of positive tests to tracking infections in public schools. But advocates say the state's struggles are also a matter of priorities. Kayla Harris has more in her latest article. About 40% of people who get rent vouchers from the San Antonio Housing Authority can't find a place to live, according to city officials. Affordable Housing Advocates says that has to stop. Some landlords, individuals, and companies refuse to rent to someone who has government vouchers for rent or whose income includes Social Security, child support, or other sources not related to a regular job. San Antonio is considering an ordinance that would prohibit certain property owners from rejecting a tenant based on the tenant's source of income. Find out more about restrictions on such rules in Texas and when a change could happen in San Antonio in Liz Hardaway's latest article. For at least 2 years, the San Antonio City Development Office has routinely given developers every variance they've wanted to skirt tree preservation ordinance, letting them remove thousands of trees without the knowledge of the city's elected leaders. Now that's going to change. Reacting to an investigative report in the San Antonio Express News, City Manager Eric Walsh has directed staff to be more transparent about any variances to the ordinance given to developers. The city decided to change the policy after the newspaper found that developers asked for 206 variances to the tree ordinance in the last 2 years and that all were granted. Brian Chasnov has more on the situation and the new rules over at expressnews.com. Justin Rodriguez worked hard to get into the thick of things. Now 46 and a newly elected Precinct 2 Bexar County Commissioner, he fits comfortably into a political system that relies for its survival on webs of relationships and loyalty. The system allows elected officials to draw government salaries and hold second jobs, including jobs that involve putting together bond deals for cities, counties, and other arms of local government. That's what Rodriguez is doing. In his Restless City column, Greg Jefferson explains why Rodriguez is moonlighting, how it works, and how what's permissible and what's right aren't always the same thing. Coronavirus hospitalizations in San Antonio fell for the 6th straight day, but health officials continue to report a high number of deaths from COVID-19 as the area appears to recover from the worst of the winter surge. As for the coronavirus vaccine, short supply and erratic delivery are causing long waits for inoculations. Our Vaccine Frequently Asked Questions page has what you need to know. Next up are your need to know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. A Bexar County Sheriff's deputy shot a 19-year-old man in the arm Saturday night after a high-speed chase, during which the man pointed what turned out to be a pellet gun at deputies. It was the second officer-involved shooting of the day and the fourth in 5 days in Bexar County. 2 years after a bruising battle between San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg and former City Councilman Greg Brockhouse, the two men will likely face each other once more for the mayor's seat in a race defined by the human and economic toll wrought by COVID-19 and cries from activists for police reform. We have everything you need to know about the race over at expressnews.com. San Antonian James Sonny Upmore and his son Chance are facing 4 federal indictments accusing them of being violent insurrectionists at the U.S. Capitol. Read how the FBI pieced together how the Upmores used the time they spent while in the Capitol over at expressnews.com. The San Antonio Riverwalk Association, financially devastated by the cancellation of parades, festivals, and other events, is grabbing a lifeline by merging with Visit San Antonio, the public-private partnership that markets the city. San Antonio's economic recovery from the pandemic could be slower than the rest of Texas because of the city's dependence on the leisure and hospitality industry, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. More than a quarter of the Texas workforce, about 3.5 million employees, would get a raise if Democrats succeed in their bid to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Though, Republicans say the effort would also lead to as many million jobs lost in the state. The San Antonio Police Department is allowing family members of Durrell Zamalt Sr. to see its body cam footage nearly 5 months after he was killed in a fatal police confrontation. COVID-19 is shifting the way medical providers build structures and choose real estate. Medical buildings of the future will need to be smarter and cleaner to reduce the risk of virus transmission. Communities and Schools of San Antonio has received a $1 million grant from USAA to further its efforts to guide at-risk high school students to graduation and beyond. Mayor Ron Nirenberg, a CPS Energy board member, is calling the city-owned utility to release a document laying out what it would cost to close the Spruce coal plant earlier than planned, information that environmental activists had long clamored for. On Saturday morning, more than 30 volunteers spent 3 hours clearing a non-native species from the Headwaters Sanctuary at Incarnate Word. Las Vegas gambling tycoon Sheldon Adelson, who died January 11th, and his wife Miriam combined to give more than $5 million in campaign donations to Texas politicians over the past 6 months to help Republicans retain control of the Texas House. For as much as arts and culture groups and the individual artists themselves have contributed to the city's identity and vibrancy, the relationship hasn't been reciprocal, writes Elena Ayala in her latest column. During his first 5 years in office, Governor Greg Abbott was the Teflon governor, writes Gilbert Garcia, adding that the governor's aura of invincibility has taken some hits over the past year. Find out why Garcia thinks a Beto O'Rourke gubernatorial bid would energize both parties. This time last year, on February 2nd, 2020, American citizens who were being evacuated from China during the coronavirus outbreak would be in quarantine at Lackland. Quote, "This action is a precautionary and preventative step to maximize the containment of the virus in the interest of the health of the American people," according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as reported by Express News reporter Sig Christensen. Brian Strange's catering business, one of the largest in San Antonio, traces its history back 69 years. The company, Don Strange of Texas, bears his father's name, but it got its start when Brian's grandparents opened up a grocery store on Bandera Road on the city's west side in 1952. At the time, the store run by Joe and Edith Strange was the last one between San Antonio and Bandera, providing staples and gas to travelers. The business exploded in the late 1960s, spurred on by increasingly sophisticated customers who wanted food choices beyond Texas barbecue. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Don Strange of Texas was catering more than 1,000 events a year. But the pandemic has hit the company hard, as it has most others in the hospitality industry. In our Q&A, Brian Strange said he hopes better days aren't far away. Holy Cross's Jordan Battles completed 12 of 16 passes for 221 yards and 4 touchdowns and rushed 10 times for 66 yards, leading Team Gold to a 44-31 victory over Team Black at Hero Stadium. Quote, "I woke up this morning feeling dangerous," said Battles, who earned game MVP honors with his performance. Lobo Provisions Smoke Shack food truck near Bulverde earned a worth a drive rating with a chef's spin on brisket. Read our 52 Weeks of Food Trucks review over at expressnews.com. Expiration dates on foods have nothing to do with safety. Paul's Cooking Tips column this week has your guide to when food actually does spoil and what the heck those other dates really mean. In his latest column, Calvin Finch guides you through everything you need to know to get your lawn ready for spring growth. Meanwhile, Neil Sperry answers readers' questions about yellow holly leaves, pre-emergent weed killer, and more. With every DeJounte Murray growl, and with every Lonnie Walker laugh, and with every Keldon Johnson primal scream, an exuberant new generation is changing a franchise's personality. With the young team, Greg Popovich's patience is finally paying off. And that's all for today. This was your Express briefing for Monday, February 1st. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.